It's kind of crazy to believe that people born in the 2000s are now becoming adults, with many of them hitting their early, if not mid 20s by now. And it's funny because when I was growing up, as I'm sure a lot of you guys will relate to, the 20s, your years, between let's say 20 and 27 at the most, were told to be a time for exploration, a time for wasting time. This is kind of the societal message. However, as I grow older, I see the issues with this, and I want to share a story which enlightened me. Just the other day, I was speaking to somebody that I know. It was a girl who was about, let's say, 25, and she was telling me about how she feels her life is going. She was telling me about the fact she's got no real qualifications, basically a dead-end job, she's broke, she's not happy, and all the rest of the things, right? She just was not enjoying stuff. And this was a really, really eye-opening experience, because I'm not like 25 yet. I'm a bit younger than that. And I've got enough time now to kind of build myself up in a way that I wouldn't be feeling these pressures or issues when I am 25, 26, 27, because you guys already know it's about building businesses, it's about building incomes, it's about getting real world skills. However, not enough people of our generation and of our age focus on this, and I want to share today the significance of this and why it's such an important thing to do. It's funny because people don't necessarily realize it, but your 20s is a very, very significant time, and so many people in our generation spend it gaming, drinking, and partying. Now, that's all fine. We all have our pastimes, we all have our stuff that we do to, let off and have a bit of fun now and again, but so many people have kind of reverted to this or resorted to this as a manner of living. Think about it. Most of your university years is sold as partying, clubbing, not actually getting a good degree or qualifications. That's kind of the side mission. Then we've got people who spend all day gaming, right? That's really moving you nowhere unless you're streaming it or filming it and making some money from it. These are all activities which are not moving you forwards in life. And just like the person who I was speaking about just a moment ago, people start to realize later in their 20s how significant wasting this early on time was. I feel kind of lucky. I don't feel like I've kind of learnt this just by my own skills. I feel lucky to have met so many people and been exposed to so many people's different lifestyles, to have seen the consequences of different manners of living. And the truth is, for a lot of people, come to about 25, 26, 27, and it hits, like a ton of bricks, basically. Because up until this point, it's told to us, you can party, you can this. But then you start to get to 25. Now you're only 5 years away from 30, right? So let's just imagine the things that you're expected to do at 30. So when you're at 30, what do you even want, right? Never mind what does society expect, but what do you even want? I can say, looking at my life, I do not want the same things, even at 21, than what I wanted at 18. Let alone 16, 15, right? I want a completely different lifestyle. I want a bit more structure. I want a lot more money. All these sorts of things. Living the same way would not be fun. Now start to extrapolate this into 25, 30, right? 30, what do you want? Do you want kids? Do you want a family? Do you want a career? And this is why focusing on the early years is extremely important. Now, here's the thing, guys. I've said this before, and I still agree with it. Your 20s is still a time for experimentation. It's a time for figuring out what you want and what you don't want. But so many people do this alone. Nothing else is in their life, right? And then they hit a wall where they get a bit of a shock, because the time that, let's just say, for example, a few societal norms, right? You want to have some kids. Well, the time that you could have been saving for a mortgage, let's say, to secure a place for you and your kids to live, you weren't. You were partying or doing this or whatever. And this is why, to kind of bring this all together, we need to focus on responsibilities even when we don't feel like it. You see, I'm making this video for people in my age range. I'm kind of explaining a bit of a story and then going into why this is significant and what I would recommend doing about this. I think there's two things. The first thing is realizing that if you delay all of the importance until 25, 30, 35 even, because I've seen this, we all know of people like this, right? Let's not lie. You probably know one, I know one or two. People who get to not even 25, because at 25 it's recoverable, and we'll talk about that in a second, but 30, 35. Now, So people are going to be like, what have you been doing? You're probably going to be like, what have you been doing? And some people are happy living that lifestyle, right? Some people don't want these stabilities, and that's cool. That's fine. But we're looking at this from a kind of normal view, because this is going to be how most people perceive things, right? So imagine this, right? You get to 30 and you've done nothing. Dead-end jobs which have resulted in no savings, or perhaps you could have had savings but you spent them, whatever it is, right? Now at 30, the amount of pressure that you will have to put in to get anywhere in the next 5 years is immense. And if you delay this to 10 years, what are you going to do? At 40? At 40, you're going to start living properly? 10 years off 50 at that point. And I don't say this to stress anybody out, but I'm trying to make a point here. When you delay things completely, you need to live with a sense of urgency, basically. Because again, you want to have kids, you want to have a family, you want to have a house. How much are you going to need to save? This is just common sense, right? So it becomes more difficult as you get older. But here's the thing. It doesn't have to be like this. Now, people often say, what is the right answer at that point? And of course, the answer is going to be subjective. I can't give you the definitive correct answer, but what I can give you is my opinion based on what I'm seeing and the people who I'm speaking to. Because here's what I always say. Don't take advice of people who might have traveled to a place once, or people who might have experienced something once. Take experience of people who are living it, right? They live in the country, they're living in this circumstance. And I've been listening to so many people who are living in this situation in their life where they've just, through knowingly or not knowingly, let everything slip. So what do you do at that point? Or how do you avoid getting to that point? Well, like I say, I think the true answer is, if you are at this point, it is about living with a sense of urgency. And I've shown you guys on the channel in the past 2 months, or 3 months now, what I've done with a couple of months of living like things are urgent, right? I've built up enough savings to live on for a year, nearing up 2 years now, because, I'm actually building quite a lot of cash in savings, investments, in other things as well, and building more income streams. So it can be done, but that's the kind of urgency that you'll need to live with, not for a couple of months and then keep working, yes, but lighten up a bit. Probably for a year, 2 years, 3 years, to get the savings in check, to get money in check, to get even a set of skills, right? Maybe you need to retrain in a thing. However, how do you avoid this? If you're watching this and you're my age, what have I learnt from these people to potentially avoid getting into this situation? Well, what I'd say is this. Is really, really easy to not end up like this. There's a few things that you need to realise, and a few skills which will become powerful as you get older. Number one is experience and skills, right? People like to say this is not significant, but it is. It's one of the reasons why I now have a part-time job. It's one of the reasons why I am trying to get all of the qualifications and skills that I can. Even if all of my businesses continue to work and continue to grow, and I'm able to never work a job again. Let's just say that in theory. I'm not even going to float that as an idea, but let's just say in theory, right? I still would like to have some backup, saying, well, yeah, but I've got experience in this market, or I've got skills in this market, or I've got this or that. This is important to me, at least. And going on to that, or focus on that a little bit more, this is something that you can focus on building in your early 20s, even earlier than that sometimes. You can build a set of skills, you can build savings as well. This is important because money is a real world asset, or assets are tangible even. So a lot of people in the 20s don't save. I know people who go out there and buy super expensive clothes, super expensive jewellery. I know people who, at age 20, 23, 24, genuinely, not even fake, genuinely have Rolex watches and fancy Audis, right? Well, that's not going to look good in a couple of years. If you're making good money, fair enough. But at the same time, let's just say an Audi, right? What's that going to be? 15 grand, 20 grand? Take that money, even if it's on finance. Let's say finance payments are $300 a month. Take that $300 a month, ideally put it into some investments, but let's not even use that argument. Let's not even use that argument. I know some people are going to say, money in a bank account is dead money. Partially true. However, money in a depreciating car is completely dead money. So let's just use this as an example. Just put it into a bank account. just save 300 a month, right? Over a year, 5 years, 10 years, what are you going to have? Are you going to have a deposit? Are you going to have travel money? Are you going to have a relocation to a different country money? Are you going to have money to upskill yourself? All these different things that you can use this money for? Or, again, going on the investment front, maybe you build a business with this money. Maybe you invest in a way that builds your money even more generally, right? Perhaps it is a stock market if you want to do that. Perhaps it is some other markets. But it really hit me, and I know it's going to sound naive, but kind of bringing this video full circle to my original story, right? It really struck me, and it really struck me when I was listening to this girl talk, because this is someone who I know quite a bit, and she's nice and everything, right? Nothing against her at all. But forgive me. But hearing her story of how she felt, how behind she was, it almost struck some fear into me. Because right now, I've already told you guys on this video, right? I've got savings, I've got investments, not in stock markets, but in my own businesses, things that I can resell for a decent margin, and they are obviously selling because I'm running a business. But yeah, it struck me the fact that this could very easily be your reality. And that was scary. And that should scare a lot of you guys. I don't say that to necessarily strike fear into you. I know there's kind of a bit of a semantic juxtaposition between what I just said and what I'm saying now. I'm not trying to scare you to strike fear into you, but I'm trying to prove that this can happen a lot easier than people think. And that should be worrying. That should be worrying, because the last thing that any of you want, and the last thing that I want for you guys, the last thing that I want for myself, is to wake up, let's say, basically tomorrow, but it's not tomorrow, right? It's 2035, and you're 31, and you're still in a dead-end job. Or anything like that. This is what you don't want to happen, and it is avoidable. It's quite avoidable. And here's the thing, just to quickly go on this point as well. This doesn't mean that you need to have a boring life in your 20s. I need to emphasize this as well, right? With the amount of money that you can make, even in a fairly low paying job, put some into savings, assuming that you live in a cheap place, whether that is by yourself, with your parents, in a room share, or a house share, or with your friends, right? Your living costs will be quite low, probably. This is obviously not going to be true for everybody, but yeah, put the rest into savings. And then, you've still got spending money. Go on trips, go on travels, go out on nights out, spend on designer clothes a little bit. But just for your own sake, guys. And I'm not saying this to kind of be patronizing, because I know most of you guys will probably be older than me. But at the same time, it doesn't mean that you're not in this position. And I need to just hammer this home as much as I can, because if I can kind of open at least one person's eyes to this concept, and save one person's future, or change one person's future, that is enough, right? You guys need to realize that this can happen to you, and it doesn't have to. It doesn't have to. Don't ruin your 20s. I've always said this myself. Travel, experience things. You'll never get a chance to do it with so little responsibility, so few societal expectations, and a lot of other freedoms that will come at this age range. So do it, by all means. But at the same time, do realize, if you're my age, 21, or even a bit younger, right? So 10 years ago, I was 11. What was I doing at 11? I was in primary school, I believe. Yeah, primary school. I can remember that. It feels like a long time ago, but not that long ago. And I'm sure a lot of you guys can relate to this. When you were 11, in fact, no, when you were 10, 1 year was 10% of your life. When you're 20, 1 year is 5% of your life. When you're 40, 1 year is going to be 2.5% of your life. So what does this mean? It means that, I'm sure a lot of you guys can relate to this, like for me it feels like a couple of days ago it was summer, now it's already middle of winter, nearly Christmas. So my point is, as you get older, time speeds up, and it can happen faster than you think. Don't fall behind, don't be that person, and you have the power to change this path. But a lot of people in our generation are gaming, wasting time, and doing stuff which is going to lead them right down a path that they simply need to avoid. Thank you guys. Hope you enjoyed. I'll see you soon.